Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Here in, oh man, I wish I could say it was sunny, Union Grove.
No, not today.
It's just not, is it?
Dreary.
Very
Yes.
dreary. But that's okay because we've got Erica Goodnight on there, and she's going to liven up the program today and tell us all about Union Grove Lumber. And we have a special guest, which is really cool, Connor. Connor, do you care to just kind of introduce yourself, the name of your company, and maybe just a quick overview of what you do?
Happy today. My name is Connor Burke. I'm Bestway Law. Multiple locations, but one of them is down in Stony Point, North Carolina, which is where we do the treating for Union Grove, Erica. And I'm an operations manager.
Awesome. And I guess the best way for me to kind of explain what you do is you oversee the dry kiln process for Union Grove Lumbers, or for Bestway Enterprises. Is that right?
Well, it's the whole process from the time the material comes in bright, so straight from the mill to getting treated. And then there is also a dry kilning is a process beyond the chemical treatment. So Connor can explain the difference there, but he oversees, or Bestway oversees the entire treatment process from the bright material from the wood to the finished material that is ready for the customer.
Very cool. So, yeah, this is something I feel like from the shed industry. So typically your listeners are going to be those who sell sheds. They're selling the end product, or they're manufacturing the product. And I love to use the tagline education through entertainment. So I really appreciate the educational value of this particular episode. Connor, can you kind of give me an overview of that process, what that looks like, and how that's valuable to the manufacturer who's actually installing the product?
Yeah, absolutely. The treating process is really unique, and there's actually multiple ways to treat lumber. We do pressure treating. That's what our company specializes in. That's all we do for Union Grove. There's also spray treatments, dip treatments, which obviously don't get quite as much chemical into the lumber as pressure treatment. So for the pressure treatment process, you have a set of carts that you would load whatever material you're treating onto, and you would pull or push those carts into the pressure vessel or the cylinder, and you would pull an initial vacuum using a vacuum pump. What the initial vacuum does is lumber and out of the cells. That's completely dry, kind of like wringing a sponge out, where you're still going to have structure in there, but it's going to leave a lot more room for the chemical to be able to make it into. And then from there, you use that vacuum that's on the cylinder, and you open valves that are different things you're pulling from, and that vacuum will actually just pull that solution that you pre-mixed into your cylinder. And then you can go into a soak process, also called atmospheric absorption, or you can kind of skip that and move in. It depends on what you're treating. If you want it to soak, to kind of like ease its way in, or if you want to just go right into your pressure cycle. And then you'll transition into your pressure cycle, in which you'll actually feed solution from your tank, either your work tank or a separate tank, depending on the plant setup, and you'll continue to push solution into that cylinder, which is already full. Everything additional that goes in is forced into the lumber. Now, an interesting thing about that is you would imagine that it would just push in from anywhere it could touch the material, but actually almost all of your penetration on lumber in the pressure treating process is from the ends. And then once you hit your set points that you've set, which change for all materials, even sometimes depending on how mills harvest or treat the material, or where the lumber comes from, whether it's different regions, different states, it could be even a different country, they're all going to treat different. And then once you've hit those set points, you're going to go into what would be called a release pressure. Now, you can release the pressure right away, or you can release it slowly. And what that's going to do is the slower you release, it's basically going to be like a cool down process. You were working out or something, where you don't just go full bore down, right? That's generally good for you. And you're going to go into a blowback process, which you use a set of pumps, valves, and piping to be able to put pressure into the top of your cylinder and push that pressure down in and blow all that solution right back into the same work tank it came from. And then once this is done, you step into your the same thing you did in the first pack, which is your excess, moisture, your preservative that's in there that's not fixated to the lumber. And your goal there is that when material comes out, it's as dry as possible as far as being drip free, so it can ship to the customer as fast as possible. And then you have, a vent process at the end, make sure there's no pressure or vacuum or anything on the cylinder. And you end your charge, pull your cylinder out, your carts out, you unload the carts, and you start the process over again.
Have you considered adding a line of shed accessory items to your sales lot?
Introducing Shedderize. Shedderize has multiple items to organize your customer's new shed. From tool shelves to workbenches with pegboard, 3-tier shelves, cord and ladder hooks, and more.
Shedderize is seeking shed manufacturers and dealers who want to partner and make these items available for your customers.
Dealers can order items for display, then complete an order form and have the items shipped directly to the customer. You can also purchase in bulk to add to your line of sheds or have inventory available right there at your sales lot. Installation is simple and takes just a few minutes for most items.
To know more, contact Dave Fisher at 866-548-1625 or visit Shedderize.com.
Shedderize, organization made easy.
And then, so you kind of alluded to a part of differing in different parts of the country. And I think that that's very interesting because on the East Coast, we don't have to use incising. And that's something that has to be done on a lot of species on the West Coast. And that's where, even folks on the West Coast ask for us to send East Coast material there because of the incising doesn't have to be done. So can you kind of speak to, when it's incised, also the treatment process is very dark. It's a very dark brown treatment. And then on the East Coast, it's a lighter, sometimes green tinted treatment process. Can you kind of tell them the difference in those and why incising is required on the West Coast?
Yeah, so being on the East Coast, I have seen incising a little bit. We've treated some material hemlock that's been incised. And my understanding of that is the incising allows for better penetration because you're putting more contact points that are open now for preservers to be able to penetrate in. But it also, I believe, has something to do with the material not checking or cracking as bad. And I don't know the science behind why that happens, but that has been something that has been explained to me before.
That is my understanding as well. And so with the Doug fir, it's just a higher Janko rating material, which means it's denser. So the incising has to occur in order to get that treatment process to penetrate. But then yellow pine, which is primarily on the East Coast, is a lesser Janko rating. Now, can you, that also goes into the effect, some people have asked me in the past if we can treat spruce. Well, of course, spruce can be treated, but in that, the same treatment process is going to occur as with yellow pine, but you still are going to have that softness. Just because it's treated doesn't necessarily mean it's going to become more dense. Can you kind of explain to the audience what treatment, why you should even treat? Beyond the process of treating, why is treated material better, and why should it be used for certain applications beyond bright material?
So all untreated lumber, as it's harvested, milled, and dried, will last for a certain period of time, say average of 2 to 5 years, maybe on its own. And at that point, it'll have deteriorated, rotted. With pressure treating and injecting preservative throughout all of the material, you're increasing that lifespan by, depending on where it's used, easily 5 to 10 times. And that is your main reason, right? You're putting the preservative in there that is engineered to fight against rot, fungi, borers, all different insects. And that is your main purpose, is that you're going to extend that life significantly, like I said, 5 to 10 times, depending on, what treatment you use, how you use it, installing it properly is very important. So that's the main reason there.
Hello from the Shed Geek. let's take a walk through My Shed 3D. With My Shed 3D, your company can simply add a 3D builder button to its website. Once the customer clicks onto the 3D builder button, they will enter some basic information to get started. Remember, this information is captured in your Leads tab, whether or not the customer designs a building. This is very valuable information that turns a cold call into a warm lead. Next, they begin the design of their shed by selecting a primary use, a style, and a size that best fits their need. My Shed 3D has multiple styles that are available and consistent with traditional and barn styles within the shed industry. However, if you offer a customized or non-traditional style, My Shed Solutions can build that design for future use. We can also save on some design features that make it easy to adjust without a major rebuild or added fees for design changes. For instance, want to offer a steeper roof pitch? Just navigate to the Settings tab. Then click the Building Models. Click Edit Building and just enter the new roof center height, and the design changes will reflect on this style option. This will save you thousands versus traditional design changes that need to build a whole new style to match your design. From here, simply choose the style, siding, and color. Then choose a trim and roofing style and color. Next, let's add a door. That was goofy. Next, let's add a door. It is required to add a door to move forward with the design, as at least one ingress-egress option is necessary. Then add some design changes for personalization. Maybe some windows, or a porch, or some interior shelving. Next, just click Save Design and the customer will receive an automated text with all the features of the design to the email address entered at the beginning. From here, they can edit the design, view the details of the design, pay now to order the shed, or click Rent to Own to complete the necessary steps to purchase a shed they designed with My Shed 3D. The design enters the admin panel as a quote, and this is where the manufacturer can update the progress of the design once a deposit is taken. My Shed, from design to delivery, we have you covered.
Perfect. And on panels, let's go over that for a second, because treating panels is an entire proprietary, as Connor would like to say, process. And explain to the user, obviously Union Grove Lumber and you guys, Bestway, we do not do spray treatment. We do not just spray it on and then let her rip. We actually penetrate the panel. But there's an important thing that we do in blows. So explain what a blow is and how we kind of circumvent that occurring on panels, not giving details, but what a blow even is and why it's hard to overcome that.
Now, as far as a blow, just because sometimes terminology is slightly different in different regions, what's another way that you would describe the blow?
So what I'm thinking of is how you guys have the certain vacuum sets so that whenever you are releasing that pressure, the panel doesn't come apart.
Gotcha, yeah. So with panels, there's a few things that are important. Your pressure cycle itself has restrictions on how much pressure you're actually allowed to treat a plywood or a panel at. So one of the things you do is you don't really want to go over 120 PSI. Now you can find different ratings, different places. We intentionally stay below 100, and if needed, just press longer. That is one of the things that we found is most effective with not having the different layers of veneer separate. And then your blowback process, we generally keep when we're emptying the cylinder somewhere is around 10 or 12 PSI. Again, much lower than what you're seeing during your pressure cycle.
Perfect. And then I know that Shannon had a question, it kind of alluded to at the beginning of this segment. What is the difference in drip drying and kiln drying?
So drip drying is, what we do after we unload every cart after material's been treated. You put it on your pad. All of your drip pads should be pitched towards a collection point. Now, not usually a lot, a few degrees. But what you would do is you would take, say, a larger stick, a 6x6, and then maybe a 4x4 or 2x4, and you would set that unit on an angle going with the pitch of your drip pad to just steepen that even more. And then you'll let the material drip until it's literally drip free, or you could put your hand under it and nothing would fall on your hand. You could lift it up, drive around and there's nothing coming off that unit. So that's drip drying. And then kiln drying is usually or always involves sticking the material with hardwood sticks between every layer and then loading an entire kiln with that material. And you always want to try to keep like material, dimension, length, because you want airflow from front to back. And then back to front when you reverse your fans, but you want to be able to get flow all the way through that kiln charge or that kiln load. So what you'll do is you'll load an entire kiln up with like material, like I said, shut your doors, you'll turn your heat on. There's steam, there's, furnaces, blowers, all different styles of heating. But every kiln has fans that run forward and backwards, and you're heating and moving air and evaporating the moisture out.
And that takes a long time. That's why people ask,
significantly longer.
Why is kiln dried material so much more expensive? Well, it's a lot more time and effort put into it, for sure.
I'm thinking just the process in general. Like, I'm familiar with, like air drying, which would be a little bit different than drip drying, right? Like, air drying is going to take a much longer process. It's just setting it out in the elements, basically, if I understand correctly. Whereas kiln drying,
correct,
you're actually going through a process. My brother worked at a dry kiln facility in Cairo, Illinois. I mean, they literally brought in the logs and come out with boards at the end of it. And I'm thinking to myself, how does that happen? I mean, there's a process. You're paying to have those things done.
For sure.
And not only that, but I think about, Erica, the supply chain, and how there's certain process that has to happen. So when people start asking, what's going on with supply in the industry when you have something like COVID hit, right? Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, oh no, I've got no product. Well, there's still a process that has to take place for...
There is, and if there's anything that stops in that process, let's just say that the cylinder had problems at Bestway where we treat, that stops the process. And so then you have that backlog of getting the material up and going again. And for kilns, so there are kilns at the mill where the logs are cut. And so it's kind of a little crazy with our notched runners, which Bestway treats for us. But we have to kiln the log. We have to kiln that 4x6 down to 17% dryness. Then we bring it here and cut it with the notches. Then we go and just submerge it into water again to treat it. Of course, those we don't kiln dry after. That's just something that's not required or needed. But all of those things take time, and all of those things take energy, literally, from humans and from machines to get that job done. But it's kind of counterintuitive because we have to have it 17% dry, but then we're just putting it straight into water. So it's a little bit crazy, but kilns are needed, but it is a time consuming process, for sure.
What's something unusual, Connor, that most people wouldn't understand about the dry kiln process? I mean, what's something that you have to explain that's probably a little bit more obvious that we just miss as builders, as a shed builder?
I would say that the rate at which you dry the material, which changes for every species, every different size of material. You don't want to dry timbers with a 2-inch, with a 2x4. You can over dry and have checking. You can case harden, which makes something very difficult to treat. There's a lot of ins and outs to kiln drying. They're very specific, like I said, to every last little detail.
Yeah, I think most of the builders will probably appreciate that because they might not get that one-on-one education, to know what product they're installing. I mean, the end goal is to sell sheds, right? That's why that's why we're doing what we're doing. So the end goal is to sell it, but product knowledge is sometimes something that's a little bit lacking. Maybe not just on the manufacturing side because they don't get a chance to get that one-on-one explanation like this, but it has another layer of communication when it gets to the dealer, and the dealer's trying to explain that product. I remember trying to explain warranties. I mean, I've sold Union Grove product before, and I remember trying to be educated on that. What are some, Erica, what are some of the products that would be dry kiln that you guys would sell?
Okay, so currently dry kilning is not something that is used readily in the shed industry, just because it's an extra step that isn't really required or needed. So most of our items are air dried. We are looking into doing some kiln dried T111 for a few reasons. Kiln drying things reduces shrinkage as it dries after installation. You know, if you were putting up something that has 35% moisture in it versus something that has 12% moisture, you know, it has less shrinkage if you kiln dry it. So we're looking into kiln drying T111. But most of our items are just regular treated with air dry. Our floor joist, runners, shed floor, and T111 are all pressure treated by Bestway, and all have the full penetration treatment, not spray treated. And then Connor, can you explain, we do sell ground contact items, but what is the difference, and how why would someone need ground contact versus regular treatment process?
So the treatment process between ground contact and above ground is actually identical. The only difference is the strength at which the preservative we're using. So the solution makeup, how much concentrate we have put in, whether it's copper based or whatever other things you may be using. What we use for you guys, the starting point is copper based, and then you have moldicides and fungicides that are added. So all of those, the moldicide and fungicides will stay the same, because you want to keep those high as you can within your limits, but your copper concentrate will increase significantly. Actually, about 2.5 times is what we'll be putting in for the ground contact over the above ground. But the process, again, is the same. And as far as where it's used, that's one of the most crucial things that's kind of been misunderstood over the years. If something's treated, it can go anywhere. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Like anything, right? Everything has its proper uses. And your ground contact stuff should be stuff that's in the ground, on the ground, or within, say, 8 inches of the ground, or difficult to replace and has poor ventilation, right? If it's something that's the foundation, like your notch runners, now if they're elevated properly, they're getting good airflow, not much of potential is down for failure. But if you have something that's on the ground, there's a greater potential. If you have something that doesn't have good ventilation, right, it's constantly moist, more insects, bugs, whatever, all going to be there. So that's your main difference.
I mean, it's just going to break it down quicker. I mean, right, if it's not getting good ventilation.
Right. However, with sheds, our installation instructions, are to keep that ventilation under there. And that really, and I'm glad Connor brought that up, but that goes a lot into the flooring warranties. And so for treated flooring or Performax, all of those require ventilation. And so that's where very few of our items, we do treat ground contact as requested by customers. Connor and his group are always happy to do that and to accommodate customers' needs. And so we do ground contact treatment, but it's just not as common as above ground because of our installation requirements for other items, mainly flooring. If you do not have ventilation or you're setting it directly on the ground, those warranties are voided. And so our manufacturers are wanting to retain those warranties. So it's just not as crucial.
Yeah, there's a lot of warranties that go 7 years, 8 years, 9, 10 years.
Our Performax is 25.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. Good plug. Good plug.
There you go. You're welcome, Huber. No, but I think that the warranties overall are important. And everybody carries different warranties, and mainly Union Grove Lumber and our vendors really do try to warranty as long as the builder will warranty is our main thing. If you're going to go out and you're building a barn and you're warranting it for 5 years, front to back, left to right, we're going to try to come alongside of you and help you in that warranty process. But I will say most treated material, you just have to check with your vendor and make sure, what kind of warranty treated material carries, because sometimes it is very limited, and it doesn't warranty against certain things. There is treating something. Connor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but treating something warranties against rot and decay. There is no warranty with discoloration or necessary mold, because that has a lot to do with the environment. That doesn't have to do with the treatability or the treatment process that was put on there. Connor, if you want to.
No, you're 100% correct.
So I'm thinking like definitely the craftsmanship warranty is different than the product warranties. And to me, it just makes sense that the manufacturer should supply the salesperson with the material list, that shed's actually built out of, and then have knowledge of actually those product warranties. Craftsmanship warranty is simple. Hey, look, we guarantee 5 years, 10 years that we have put this together right. Now, craftsmanship plays a big role in the warranty on product though as well. It has to be applied correctly.
Yes, and it has to be applied based off of the product installation instructions. And, that's where we have to have good communication with our customers, the manufacturer, to ensure that they are A, installing correctly, and B, selling it with the correct warranty. You don't want to oversell something, but then again, you definitely don't want to undersell yourself. So that's where you just work together.
I'm assuming
great communication.
You guys have that line of communication, but you also have that information available for those who use Union Grove Lumber.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that way they can get good product information, pass that on to their salespeople. The line of communication, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the communication exercise where you put 10 people in a room, you say something, they turn around and say it to the next one. By the time it gets to the 10th one, it looks or sounds nothing like where they started.
Right.
You're trying to get that product information to the end user, which is that the person who purchases the shed and feels like what I was sold is exactly what'll happen if I have a product failure.
Right.
They're going to take care of that.
And that's where Union Grove Lumber, even, with our relationship with Bestway or Huber or Roseburg, Union Grove Lumber chooses vendors that protect us till the end. And so I think that has a lot to do, with us being able to stand behind products, is we have faith in our vendors. And that should a problem occur, that everybody is on the same page of just rectifying the problem and moving on. Whenever you have a vendor that has a vendor, whenever the tail end person won't stand behind their product, then you've got an issue. But luckily at Union Grove Lumber, we choose our vendors very wisely. And Connor has, always helped so much on the whole United States. We've got multiple treating facilities, but Connor is a vital part of our processes because it's very proprietary to what we do, especially with treating T111. And it's just super helpful to have somebody on your team that is so knowledgeable and wants that product to be as beautiful as possible with no fallout. And, there's lots of things and to just make the panels beautiful.
ShedHub.com is the shed industry's very first two-sided marketplace that allows you, the shed seller, to list your inventory on a site specifically designed for selling sheds. ShedHub establishes more qualified sales leads and helps your customers find you with a simple online search. Shoppers searching where to buy sheds and sheds near me have grown by 200% in the last 2 years. This means even if the buyer wants to visit a sales lot to purchase a shed, their shed buying journey started with a simple Google search. They can actually check out and purchase the shed straight from ShedHub if they prefer to shop online. ShedHub does not charge any commission for sheds you sell. We simply charge the monthly subscription. Your sales commission is still yours to keep. Sheds listed on ShedHub will have first page search results in 91% of cities, or where to buy sheds is searched. For special pricing only available through Shed Geek, simply go to geek.shedhub.com to see the promo codes that allow you to save as much as 50% off the first 12 months of your subscription, and over 75% for companies with multiple sales locations. Sell more sheds using shedhub.com. I remember selling, and I remember you talking about even after it's been stained, they've put a stain on like the T111, maybe at the manufacturing location, depending on how they order it, I'm assuming. But I remember them getting that in, and you talk about like that, the way it dries. So when I hear you talking about like dry kiln T111, that's cool, because at least in my head, I'm thinking about my specific time selling. And you do have, I mean, lumber shrinks, right? I mean, it's exposed to the elements.
It expands as well.
It expands also,
it shrinks.
yeah.
That's why you have cracking in the drywall in your home.
Yeah.
Settling.
Yeah, settling. What do you do? Like, do you get like questions that come back to you ultimately from the customer?
No. And you know, Connor also doesn't have any questions from my customers. So what we do at Union Grove Lumber and then, you know, at Bestway with Connor is it feeds through the funnel. Whomever you bought the shed from, the questions would go to that person. And then if that dealer lot didn't manufacture it, then it goes to the manufacturer. And then if that manufacturer didn't actually buy the product, it goes to the home office, whoever bought the product, and then it comes to me. And then I go to Connor for questions or help, or I go to Roseburg, or I go to Huber, whomever. Then I go to my vendor, and then we figure out a resolution should product concerns arise. But no, I do not ever deal with the end customer. That would be a nightmare. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, those questions have to follow a process
They do.
in order to get the right answers.
They do.
I mean, it just
but at the
makes
end of the
sense.
day, we're there to help our customer retain their face and their, you know, just their notability in their own communities.
No, that's good. Connor, how do you get into something like this? Did you just wake up one day and said, I wanna go into the dry kiln process?
No, I would say I got really lucky. I actually went to school for criminal justice and graduated and interned and got a couple offers and ended up deciding that I wanted to stay with Bestway. I mean, they allowed me the ability to work all through college, full time, you know, summer help. They never laid me off, winters, everything. And I grew to love the company. I grew to really like the work I was doing, and there was tons of opportunity, and it worked out pretty well. So, you know, the other part of it was kind of the geekiness behind really enjoying treating. Once I got the ability to actually sit behind the computer and run the plants and do the upgrades and learn the equipment, to me, that is one of the funnest things that I get to do. Unfortunately, not as often anymore, but nonetheless, I still enjoy it the same.
You came down and treated at Bestway for a little while.
Yeah, I've treated a little bit of all our plants, but I spent my actual time, full time when I treated was at our corporate office.
Right. You were going to be what were you going to be? A cop, a lawyer?
So I wanted to be a state trooper.
Okay.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a cop.
You have the build for that. You look like a cop.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, like, I'm not sure how I like that sometimes, especially these days.
The good cop for sure. So you were going to be a cop. I was going to be a doctor, and look at us. We're here just selling wood and selling.
Probably both doing better than we would have been.
Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine life otherwise. So yeah,
it's funny how it works out. I don't think. I mean, even in sales, I follow a sales podcast pretty closely. He says, there's no. Well, there probably is now at this point, but for the most part, there's no majoring in sales. You don't go into school and say, hey, sales is what I want to do. You kind of fall into it because you figure out it just makes sense for you. For me, sales has always been difficult. Actually, every sales assessment test I ever took, they said, no, you're not going to. And then I learned that actually sales was, to me, it was building relationships. The sale happened on accident. Building a relationship happened naturally. So build a relationship with someone, and sometimes the sale happens, sometimes it doesn't. So for me, that was important, to just build a relationship.
Yeah, but now you're the Shed Geek, and Connor should start a podcast called The Treatment Geek.
The Treatment Geek. Yeah. You should do it, Connor, for sure. You should do it.
Yeah, maybe a few more years into the career, I'll have a little more free time. Right now, it's spread a little too thin. How
long have you been at it so far?
I've been with Bestway 12 years.
What's the biggest takeaway that has surprised you? I think about, it seems to me like you don't hear about product failure quite like you used to. For me, I feel like the processes only get better. But what would you say has kind of maybe surprised you the most in your line of work over 12 years, or what's changed the most?
I think the amount of new products that come into the market. Now, we have stayed very consistent with what we currently treat with, MCA. And we've used that for 10 years now. But there's still been a flood of, like any industry, people want to try to get their product in and make some money off it. But what we're using is, proven and long lasting, and we definitely like that. But that to me is probably most surprising.
Yeah, you mentioned MCA, and then I'm green here. No pun intended.
Literally.
I'm green here. So MCA, what exactly is that? And then the others, CCA, is that right?
Yeah.
Look at me go.
So MCA is micronized copper azole. So it's micronized copper, and which is basically a copper that's broken down to microscopic size. It's not completely a full liquid, but copper is your base component. Then azoles are just another additive that are used, protect against fungi and that type of stuff. The different ones, handle different things, and that's maybe the side of the chemistry that I can't give you a great answer on.
Yeah.
But your CCA, right? That was kind of your original preservative, your waterborne preservative, and it's been around for forever. I don't know when it started because it was well before me. To give you an actual date, it's still out there. It's used a lot less. That's not because it's not effective by any means. That's because of changes in where it's allowed to be used, because it's chromium, copper, arsenic, and people get a little scared of those words from time to time, even though they're
arsenic sounds real healthy.
Yeah, I debated it. I didn't know if I wanted to say it, but it fixates good. Yeah, it stays in the material. It's proven. It's they've always said it's not safe. I guess if you're going to let your kid chew on a swing set for 20 years, maybe not. But there's no that's probably they got a bigger problem than.
Have you ever had a customer ask you about how to supply power to their shed? Do you sell electrical kits as an upsell for your sheds currently? Do you want an easy, no-hassle option to offer for your customers when they want to add electric to their sheds? Check out EcoEthics Solar. EcoEthics Solar is looking for shed manufacturers and shed dealers who want to be able to provide a solar electric option to their line of sheds. With EcoEthics Solar, you can purchase the Sunsaver, a solar product specifically designed with the shed owner in mind. Want to offer a larger product that can operate a full tiny home? At EcoEthics Solar, they have the necessary product, training, and capacity to meet your customers' needs. Installation for the Sunsaver is simple and takes just 45 minutes. You can even install it right there on your sales lot or at the manufacturing facility. EcoEthics Solar even provides hands-on in-person training if necessary. Plus, they will provide you with video tutorials and handouts with specific installation instructions that keeps adding a solar-powered electrical system to your shed fast and simple. In many cases, the end user can even perform the installation once the shed is delivered to their home. If you are interested in purchasing a unit for display and then drop shipping your orders, or even ordering multiple units to have available as you build, contact my friends at EcoEthics Solar at 336-250-1284 or email sales@ecoethicsolar.com.
Right.
I remember, so as the end user, I think about shed sales because that's where I spent probably the majority of my shed career. Maybe some marketing, some RTO, some very small amounts of building or hauling. But I really enjoy being able to touch aspects of all parts of the industry. I think about what does this mean to the shed seller in the end? What does this process look like, and what does it mean? And really, what does it mean to the manufacturer? Because they're the ones actually doing the installation of the product. I remember losing a sale one time. I say I lost a sale. Sometimes you never know. There's a lot of tire kickers from the I'll Be Back family, but this guy came in one time and he was specifically talking about formaldehyde, and he's like, I can actually smell the formaldehyde. I know we went through the process as a salesperson to actually look up the product and look up the percentage of formaldehyde that was in it. Didn't really matter. He said, I can smell it anyway. So he's not buying it, which I didn't feel like it was, but it was way below what the EPA suggested or whatever. And we made sure to go through the whole process to show him the materials that was actually used and the chemicals that were used. I'm assuming EPA is probably a big part of your processes in your life. Gosh, I don't know. It seems like that's a sensitive subject to maybe start down, but what's your thoughts? Does that involve a big part of your daily life and process in this, or is it just kind of a nuance?
Yeah, it's not really a big part of our daily process. That really, luckily for us, is something that the chemical supplier has to deal with. The people who are actually manufacturing, doing all the research, and have to get the approvals through EPA and anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely have the brunt. They probably have 100% of that, actually, as far as EPA goes. I don't think I've ever dealt with EPA. Now, you talk about OSHA and your state agencies and stuff like that. Those kind of all come in and they do inspections, but EPA is not really an issue.
However, as we're wrapping up the kind of tail end of this, if people have leftover treated material of any kind, what's the best form of disposal?
So now I should probably say refer to the label, but don't burn it. That's definitely don't burn it. I mean, there's chemicals in there they're going to burn off, so definitely don't do that. But for every state that I'm aware of that I've ever done any work in, you can dispose of treated material in a landfill.
Yes. And I will second that. Here, obviously, we have the Holtec that comes in precision end trims material. And, of course, we precision end trim floor joists, which are treated. And we send it to a landfill, but it's actually a separate landfill. We pay a different fee for it to go to a separate landfill. But the reason that's important is even whenever material, even if it's treated, if you bury it yourself, inevitably, eventually, it's going to decay over time. I mean, even not in our lifetimes, over time. And that runoff is what the issue is with the treatment getting into the soil, and that's why you can't burn it. Lord, don't burn it. We've that's a no. So anyways, but it's because of the water in the soil and in the earth. So yes, dispose of it in a landfill, but make sure your dumpster emptiers know that you've got treated material in there, because in our state and county, it has to go to a different landfill.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, that's interesting.
It's much more expensive.
I would have definitely not known any of that had you not said it. I would have never guessed that. Well, I mean, I guess naturally you burn it, there's chemicals in there, but I guess in my head you think they break down over time.
Yeah,
but
no.
I mean, if they're in there, they're in there. And
yeah, the ash gets into the soil really quickly. So burning it's actually the worst form of disposal for treated material. Burying it yourself would be the second worst. And then going to the landfill is the best, but telling your folks is important.
That's good. I know so many people who take the offcuts and just throw them in a furnace. I mean,
yeah,
just,
so let's not
or maybe not a furnace, but throw them in like a
right. And you have to be careful too in what you're breathing. And I know that was a concern. I don't know if you were here, Connor, already or not, but that was a concern in a large manufacturing facility that we sell to, was them cutting the material and inhaling that just dust that has been treated, or dust in general. I mean, but we did go through all of the steps there, and we never saw a real differing effect on your health. But a lot of folks did install these clean air systems. But you just want to make sure you're ventilated in your shops.
What a change over like the years.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean?
We used to treat with what, Chris? What are railroad ties treated with, Connor?
Yeah, they'd be creosote, I believe.
Yeah. How dangerous? I mean, that's a whole nother level, but those are not used in sheds. We won't even go down that rabbit trail. But, Connor, I appreciate you today. I think that this has been educational for me also.
Yeah, this is great. One final question, sort of, before we go. What does all this mean to the shed builder? What does all this mean, like, to all this education? What do you feel like this fits in and adds value to, like, the shed installer and ultimately those who sell the product?
I figured Erica was going to pick this one up. I think she would nail it. No, I think it's very important for them to understand, proper uses for, above ground contact. Understand more about just the process, because most people think it's pressure treated, so it can be used in any way you want. Mm-hmm. And then, like we talked about right here at the end, the disposal. It's very important. Take care of the environment. Take care of the water that we're drinking, the air that we're breathing. I think that's good. And to know the points of contact. We talked about that here today too, as far as who to reach out to, so they don't go above somebody or skip somebody and use the proper channels.
I agree, and I'll second that with also the treatment processes are different. Union Grove lumber, we use full penetration, we use full submersion and vacuum. We do not use spray treatment, and there's a reason for that, because we stand behind the best and most quality product that we can, and so there's a difference there, and I want the end user and the manufacturer to know that. So I think that this has all been very informational.
Oh, it's good for an industry that definitely prides itself on quality and building quality products. I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think that's perfect. Connor, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you taking time out of your day, and it's so nice to meet you. And thank you just for your big brain on dry kiln process. I feel like I've been to school today.
Yeah, the treatment geek.
Yeah, the treatment geek. Thanks
for having me. It was a pleasure.
Well, we appreciate it so much. You have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.